You have been here before. Well, not here, but you have crossed thresholds in your life. The Irish poet John O'Donoghue writes of thresholds, "It is not a simple boundary, but it is a frontier that divides two territories, two rhythms, and two different atmospheres. At this threshold, a great complexity of emotion comes alive. Confusion, fear, excitement, sadness, hope. You have crossed thresholds before. You have moved from childhood to adulthood. You have graduated from something, changed careers. You have married. You have lost a love, which means you have all you need to traverse this threshold beautifully. If you check in with yourself right now and notice feelings of confusion or fear or sadness, it's okay. You can pat those feelings on the shoulder like an old friend, waving them on by. Notice your mind's insistence to have the answers to every question about why was this color chosen here, and on what date will this feature be perfectly in place? You can give a friendly wave to those desires for information as they pass on by. None of those answers will help you with the task before you, which is threshold crossing. The Spirit is calling you forward into something impossible to know and requiring not your division or derision, but your vision. It is easy to allow our confusion, anxiety, and sadness to keep us stuck in division or derision. Now, if you are new to this congregation, if this is your first time, you may not realize you are sitting next to someone who believes in God, transcendent, and calls God God. You may also be sitting next to someone on your other side who believes the power of human reason is more than enough without any need of a transcendent God. And you may be sitting behind someone who doesn't know if there is a God or not, but still prays anyway and loves being in community with the first two folks I mentioned. Does this describe you? We need not think alike to love alike. Amen. We need not think alike to love alike. That's how the ancient Unitarian phrase goes. And people, by the way, have been martyred for this radical notion that it is not our beliefs that define us the most. It is actually how we live our lives, how we live our values, the actions we take that express our faith, our words of kindness, love, and equanimity that speak our core beliefs out to our community and to the universe, so that we rely on each other to remind us of the people we hope to be. Amen? Amen. We rely on each other to remind us, or maybe model for us, the people we hope to be. What does this spiritual task of threshold crossing really require? It requires your awareness, taking some responsibility for your energy, for what you bring into a space. I'm telling this story with the permission of every member of my family. I want you to know that. Because it's a deeply held, precious story. The day we buried James's father, my husband James's father, Morrow, was the worst possible weather imaginable this summer. Now, Morrow, this beloved patriarch who was a wonderful father and grandfather, and by the way, who watched every single UUCA worship since March of 2020 from his home in Kentucky, he was religiously curious. He loved to engage me in theological discussion. Now, the day of that graveside service was the grayest and rainiest day of the summer on the Kentucky hillside where the family plot lies. We had brought brand new suits for James and for our 7-year-old twins, Towns and Langston, and there was not time to buy an umbrella. But the downpour never ceased, never let up, not even a little. I watched James step gingerly throughout the cemetery anyway, soaking his new wool suit, soaking himself to greet the community who had come to pay their respects to his father. He darted around to the masses huddled under big umbrellas. He greeted them with an open-hearted warmth that cut through the dreary scene. He beckoned them forward, inviting everyone to get closer in so they could really hear the preacher who was not mic'd. And when the time came for James to sing a solo or a duet with his sister of My Old Kentucky Home, I didn't know if he would make it through the song, but it turned out it didn't matter much because everyone joined in so loudly they made an instant choir. Now, before they lowered the casket, James knelt down to put his hands on it, and my children and I joined him. It was truly a dramatic moment, huddled and crying openly as the rain poured down around us. And my son felt the smooth wood and realized we wouldn't be seeing Granddad again. The moment held so much beauty. And I knew as we were in it, I knew we were crossing a threshold. When we rose, when we stood up again, it was to greet a new reality, a life without Morrow in body and voice. But we were ready to go forth into new territory. And you have been through so much. You have come through the wilderness, losing your way at times, finding it again. And now, today, you have made it through. Even in the darkest, most confusing moments of the last few years, the truth is hope was never far from reach. Amen? Now, a while ago on social media, some congregants were debating whether I was a realist or an idealist. Through the tumults of these past 4 years of our wilderness time and through the extreme ups and downs of this construction project, what I still hope to be, is a Taoist. There is a Taoist story of an old farmer who had worked his crops for many years. One day, his horse ran away. Upon hearing the news, his neighbors came to visit. Such bad luck, they said sympathetically. Maybe, the farmer replied. The next morning, the horse returned, bringing with it 3 other wild horses. How wonderful, the neighbors exclaimed. Maybe, replied the old man. The following day, his son tried to ride one of the untamed horses, was thrown, and broke his leg. The neighbors again came to offer their sympathy for what they called his misfortune. Answered the farmer. The day after, military officials came to the village to draft young men into the army. Seeing that the son's leg was broken, they passed him by. The neighbors congratulated the farmer on how well things had turned out. Maybe, said the farmer. As we cross the threshold into a new era for this community, a new era of life for ourselves in this, can I say post-pandemic, almost, not quite, world? Can we judge? Can we quiet the judging mind? The reality of our time is rife with extreme highs and extreme lows, devastating injustice and horrific loss, major achievements and joyful progress. And this past week, well, it was no exception. But I have begun to feel more and more like the old farmer, approaching it all with an even-keeled sense of wonder, not trying to predict anymore. Maybe. John O'Donohue reminds us, if you go back to the etymology of the word threshold, it comes from threshing, which is to separate the grain from the husk, where the heart of the matter is uncovered, relieved of its protection. And so the threshold, in a way, is a place where you move into more critical and challenging and worthy fullness. And I think there are huge thresholds in every life. The given world that we think is there, the solid ground we feel we're on, it's really so tentative. And I think a threshold is the line which separates two territories of spirit. And I think that very often, how we cross is the key thing. We can seek beauty in the threshold crossing. And John O'Donohue says beauty is about being more rounded, more substantial becoming. And when we cross a new threshold, if we cross worthily, and what we do is heal the patterns of repetition that were in us, that had us caught somewhere. And in our crossing, we cross into new ground where we don't just repeat what we've been through in the last place we were. So I think beauty, in that sense, is about an emerging fullness, a greater sense of grace and elegance, a deeper sense of depth, and also a kind of homecoming for the enriched memory of your unfolding life. Now, I have been looking forward to this moment for a long, long time. Anyone else? Yes. And not just because I yearned for the place itself and this chance to create a home for Atlantans who want to explore diverse beliefs and theologies, for artists who want to take risks and show bold work, not just because we are poised to become a training ground for justice makers, but because for just a few precious weeks, maybe even days, we are all strangers here. We are all newcomers. Nobody really knows where they're going or where anything is. And in our disorientation, I wonder if we might take a Taoist approach. There is not going to be enough parking. Maybe. Okay, I think that did happen. So we are urgently called to carpool and to choose environmental stewardship and community. Hooray! Maybe. This sanctuary ceiling designed to replicate a pair of folding hands. It is more beautiful than we ever could have imagined. It is perfect. Maybe. Because of the architectural quality of the ceiling, we cannot add wiring to properly mic the choir how we really want to. It's a disaster. There won't be enough seats for all of us. There's a global pandemic. We will never fill this place. Did I hear maybe? It is a relief to surrender to forces beyond our control, just to quiet the controlling, the predicting mind. We have the power to create beauty right now. We can take responsibility for this threshold crossing, for our energy, the energy we bring to it, radically welcoming each other with warmth, with grace that can just go on and on. We can begin by thinking of each other, putting each other before ourselves, not rushing to get the best seat, but leaving the best seat for someone else who might need it. We can honor that this campus was built for the communal whole. We can park at the Target parking lot. We can carpool. We can park far and make room for others. The there really are no experts at this place right now. We are, each of us, on the Radical Welcome team. Even if this is your first time, for one fantastic moment, we are all responsible for the energy we bring and the energy we offer. This is the place where we rehearse the world that we wish to see. This is the place where we rehearse the world we wish to see, where we make a home, not for ourselves, but for each other, where we think of who else out there could be saved by such a community, a place of art and faith and justice making. This is how we pass through doorway after doorway after doorway, by holding it open for each other.